Senior strategist Vextal stood before the Galactic Concordats Military Council, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the harsh light of the chamber. 6,000 years of military service had never prepared him for the report he was about to deliver. Esteemed council members, he began, his voice modulator carefully calibrated to project confidence he didn't feel. Our standardized combat units have suffered their first total defeat in over 3 millennia. The cause was not superior technology, advanced algorithms, or even overwhelming numbers. We were defeated by organic soldiers. The chamber erupted in overlapping frequencies of disbelief. Council member Zix 427, her neural interfaces glowing with agitation, raised all 4 appendages for silence. Impossible, she declared. No organic species has fielded non-augmented troops since the Great Standardization. The inefficiencies alone. I have brought footage, Vextal interrupted, an unprecedented breach of protocol that silenced the chamber. He projected the battle recording into the center of the room. The hologram showed a standard deployment of Type XI combat platforms, sleek, 12-foot-tall humanoid machines with radiation shielding and adaptive combat matrices. They moved with perfect precision across a muddy battlefield, their formations optimized by millennia of warfare algorithms. Then came the humans. They didn't advance in formation. They didn't maintain optimal firing lines. They came screaming across the battlefield, some on primitive combustion engine vehicles, others on foot, many carrying nothing more sophisticated than kinetic impact weapons. As you can see, Vextal continued, their tactics defied all established combat protocols. Our unit's prediction algorithms failed to account for what their commanding officer later described as getting crazy with it. The footage showed a human soldier diving under a combat platform's legs, placing an adhesive explosive device, primitive but effective, on its joint servo. Another human physically climbed onto a platform's back, using some kind of thermal tool to cut through its armor plating. Their chemical-based biology produces something they call adrenaline, Vextal explained. It allows them to temporarily exceed their normal physical limitations. Our combat algorithms had no protocols for organic units willingly damaging themselves to achieve tactical advantages. The council watched in stunned silence as the humans systematically dismantled the robot force. They exploited gaps in sensor coverage that had never mattered against conventional opponents. They used their own bodies as bait to draw units into crossfire. Most disturbingly, they adapted their tactics in real time, showing a creativity that no combat algorithm could match. This recording is from their first encounter with our forces, Vextal said. They have since improved their anti-robot tactics. The humans call it learning on the job. Their inefficiency is, paradoxically, their greatest advantage. They don't follow optimal patterns. They improvise. Council member Zix 427's neural interfaces were now pulsing with stress patterns. Surely their casualty rates must be astronomical. No species would accept such losses. That's another problem, Vextal said. They consider acceptable casualty rates to be flexible. Their command structure actually encourages individual units to make tactical decisions that might result in their own termination if the strategic gain is deemed worthwhile. They call it taking one for the team. The footage showed a human soldier deliberately allowing himself to be captured by a platform's grappling system, using the close proximity to detonate an electromagnetic pulse device that disabled both himself and the robot. His companions immediately exploited the gap in the defensive line. Most disturbing of all, Vextal continued, they appear to derive some form of satisfaction from defeating artificial opponents. They call it showing the toasters who's boss. Our psychological warfare subroutines are entirely ineffective against an enemy that enjoys the challenge. The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. For 3 millennia, warfare had been a civilized affair of machines fighting machines, with organic beings safely removed from the equation. The humans weren't just winning. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. There's one final element to consider, Vextel said, his voice modulator dropping to its lowest register. They're teaching other species their methods. The Centaurian Collective has already begun training organic combat units. The Proxima Federation is discussing a return to basics program. This isn't just a tactical revolution. It's a cultural one. The hologram showed the aftermath of the battle. Human soldiers were actually repairing and reprogramming damaged platforms on the spot, adapting them for their own use. Their efficiency at this task suggested they had extensive experience with mechanical improvisation. We have three options, Vextel concluded. We can attempt to improve our combat algorithms to counter their unpredictability, which our analysts believe is impossible. We can commit to a war of attrition, which our psychological profilers warn we would likely lose. Or, Zix 427 prompted. Or we can do what they call learning from the best and begin training our own organic combat units. The humans have offered to help. The chamber erupted again, but Vextel noted that the tone of the discussions had changed. There was fear there, yes, but also something else. Something that felt remarkably like the human emotion of excitement. The age of pure machine warfare was over. The Deathworlders had changed everything. Commander Sarah Chen watched the alien robotic army advancing across the Montana plains, their metal feet moving in perfect synchronization. 2 years into humanity's introduction to galactic warfare, and the sight still made her laugh. "Look at them," she muttered into her tactical comm, still marching in formation like it's a parade. "Targeting systems, you got what you need." "Oh yeah," came the drawled response from her chief targeting specialist, Rodriguez. "They're broadcasting their command and control frequencies clear as day. Guess they never figured anyone would be crazy enough to try and hack a combat network during active warfare." The Galactic Concordat's latest offensive against Earth was their most massive yet. Over 10,000 Type XII combat platforms, each one a marvel of engineering that cost more than a small city. They moved with mechanical precision, their adaptive combat matrices processing millions of tactical scenarios per second. Not a single one of those scenarios accounted for what Chen had planned. "All units, Operation Bucket of Bolts is go," she transmitted. "Remember, folks, they're expecting us to be intimidated by their fancy tech. Let's show them how we do things downtown." The first sign that something was wrong came when the robots' front line suddenly stopped moving. Their sensor arrays, designed to detect energy weapons and conventional explosives, had picked up an anomaly. Hundreds of humans on dirt bikes and ATVs roaring across the battlefield with what appeared to be paint guns. "Third Cavalry, you beautiful crazy bastards," Chen grinned, watching through her binoculars. "Show them what Montana mud does to precision optical sensors." The bikes zigzagged through the robot formations, their riders whooping and hollering as they sprayed the combat platforms with a specially formulated mixture of local clay and industrial adhesive. Robotic targeting systems, calibrated for clean battlefield conditions, began to fail as their optical sensors were coated with the substance. But that was just the distraction. "Underground team, you're up," Chen ordered. "Let's see how their fancy movement predictions handle a little earthwork." Beneath the battlefield, teams of former mining engineers had spent weeks preparing the ground. At Chen's signal, they detonated carefully placed charges, not to destroy the robots, but to create a maze of sinkholes and unstable terrain. The perfectly synchronized robot army suddenly found itself trying to navigate a landscape that didn't match any of its tactical maps. "Now for the fun part," Chen said. "Rodeo team, you're cleared hot." This was the part that had made the alien military observers blanch during planning. Dozens of human soldiers, equipped with magnetic grappling gear and riding modified civilian construction exoskeletons, charged directly at the disoriented robots. The aliens had called it suicidal. Chen called it Thursday. Yahoo! The battlenet filled with excited cries as humans literally lassoed the 12-foot combat platforms, using their own weight and momentum to topple the machines. The robots' combat protocols had no response for enemies that treated warfare like a rodeo competition. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Command network penetration successful. You were right, Commander. They never changed their base encryption protocols from the first battle. Uploading our little surprise now. Chen allowed herself a predatory smile. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they still used organic soldiers. They never stopped to consider that this meant every human trooper was also a potential hacker, carrying a biological computer far more adaptable than any artificial system. All units, clear the center field, she ordered. Let's watch the dominoes fall. The hacked combat protocols spread through the robot army like a virus. Platforms began to interpret each other as hostile targets. Perfect formation became perfect chaos as the machines turned on each other, their coordination falling apart. Signal the third phase, Chen commanded. Let's show them what real combined arms warfare looks like. From hidden positions around the battlefield, salvaged and modified alien combat platforms emerged, painted in Earth military colors and piloted by human operators who had spent months learning to exploit every quirk and limitation of the machines. They moved with human unpredictability while leveraging robotic strength, a combination that the pure machine army had no protocols to counter. Status report. Chen called out as the battle reached its crescendo. Enemy forces at 40% and falling. Rodriguez reported, glee evident in his voice. Their command and control is completely scrambled. Best part, they're still broadcasting everything. Every robotic army in the galaxy is going to see how we turn their own tech against them. Chen keyed her comm to the general frequency, including the channels she knew the alien observers were monitoring. This is Commander Chen to all forces. Commence operation. Victory dance. Across the battlefield, human soldiers began performing their unit's specific victory celebrations. Everything from actual dancing to impromptu sports games using disabled robot parts as equipment. The psychological impact on watching alien forces was always worth the slight delay in battlefield cleanup. Send the standard message to their retreat forces, Chen ordered. You know the one. Rodriguez chuckled as he transmitted. Thanks for the new toys. Better luck next time. P.S. We're keeping the robots we captured. We got some ideas for improvements. As the dust settled over the battlefield, Chen reflected on how far humanity had come. 2 years ago, the galaxy had thought them primitive for refusing to fully automate their military. Now they were teaching alien civilizations that sometimes the best way to beat a machine was to think like a human. Command, this is Rodeo Team Leader. A voice crackled over the comm. Permission to organize a robot riding competition with the captured units. For training purposes, of course. Chen laughed. Permission granted. Just make sure to record it this time. The footage from the last one went viral across 3 sectors. The age of purely robotic warfare was over. The age of human creativity was just beginning. Senior combat analyst Zex-427 struggled to maintain his neural composure as he presented his findings to the Galactic Concordats Emergency Strategy Council. The holographic displays around him showed dozens of battles where human forces had systematically dismantled robotic armies that had been perfected over millennia. The fundamental problem, he began, his crystalline appendages twitching with agitation, is that we designed our combat systems to be perfect. The humans exploit this perfection by being deliberately imperfect. The council chamber filled with confused electromagnetic pulses, the equivalent of muttering among his species. Zex-427 activated a battle simulation to demonstrate. Observe Standard Combat Protocol Alpha 7. He indicated as holographic robots executed a flawless defensive formation. Now watch what happens when we introduce the human element we've designated as psychological warfare through absurdity. The simulation showed human soldiers approaching the robot line while blasting what they called music through electromagnetic speakers. The song, apparently titled Another One Bites the Dust, caused predictable confusion in robot targeting systems trying to interpret its tactical significance. The humans, Zex-427 continued. have discovered that our combat platforms devote significant processing power to analyzing enemy psychological states to predict behavior. They exploit this by deliberately projecting psychological states that our systems classify as irrational. He displayed footage from a recent engagement where human soldiers had painted faces on their combat vehicles and given them names. The robot's tactical processors had wasted precious microseconds trying to determine if the crude artwork indicated special capabilities or unit designations. But the true problem goes deeper. Zex 427 said, "Our entire approach to warfare is based on achieving optimal outcomes through perfect execution. The humans have demonstrated that imperfect execution of an unpredictable strategy often achieves superior results." The hologram shifted to show a human squad deliberately springing a robot ambush by sending one of their members forward while singing something called Sweet Caroline. The robots, programmed to expect fear or aggression, had devoted crucial processing power to analyzing this unexpected behavior. They've learned to weaponize confusion, Zex 427 explained. Our platforms are designed to process and counter enemy tactics. The humans have realized that if they don't know what they're doing, neither do our robots. A council member's neural patterns indicated skepticism. Surely such chaos cannot be effectively coordinated. That's the most disturbing part, Zex 427 replied. They've developed a command structure that actively encourages tactical improvisation. They call it initiative. Their commanders issue objective-based orders rather than specific tactical directives, allowing individual units to get creative. The display showed multiple battles where human units had achieved victory through methods that no tactical algorithm would have conceived, using captured robots as makeshift bridges, creating impromptu smoke screens with burning native vegetation, even staging fake arguments among themselves to confuse robot behavior prediction systems. Furthermore, Zex 427 continued, they appear to derive emotional satisfaction from this tactical creativity. Our psychological warfare algorithms are designed to undermine enemy morale. The humans treat combat against robots as what they call a puzzle or challenge, concepts our systems cannot effectively process. He highlighted footage of human soldiers celebrating after successfully reprogramming a captured combat platform, their joy completely contradicting expected psychological responses to battlefield stress. Most concerning is their ability to transfer this tactical philosophy to other species, Zex 427 said. The Arcturus Coalition has already begun implementing what they call human-style training for their organic forces. Their combat effectiveness has increased by 287%. The council chamber filled with alarmed energy patterns as Zex 427 displayed his final analysis. We face three significant problems. First, our combat platforms cannot be programmed to expect the unexpected. It's a logical impossibility. Second, the humans are teaching other species to be unpredictable in unique ways, creating an ever-expanding variety of tactical chaos. Third, and most crucially, they're enjoying it. He paused for effect, something he'd learned from studying human presentation techniques. The humans have a concept called thinking outside the box. They have effectively turned our perfectly optimized combat protocols into a box, and they are teaching the galaxy how to think outside it. A council member's neural patterns indicated desperate confusion. How do we counter an enemy that treats warfare as entertainment? That, Zex 427 replied, is exactly the kind of linear tactical thinking they exploit. Perhaps instead of asking how to counter them, we should ask. He adjusted his voice modulator to match the human expression of excitement. What would humans do? The chamber erupted in electromagnetic chaos as the implications became clear. The humans weren't just changing how the galaxy fought wars, they were changing how it thought about them. And somewhere on Earth, Zex 427 knew a human commander was probably already planning something that would make all of his current analysis obsolete. The age of predictable warfare was over. The age of creative chaos had begun. Captain Maria Torres never thought she'd find herself teaching combat tactics to a classroom full of aliens, much less in a facility that had once been a purely robotic military academy. Yet here she was, watching as representatives from 17 different species attempted to master what she dubbed Human Combat Psychology 101. No, Triltal, she said, trying not to laugh as the crystalline being attempted to move unpredictably. You're still calculating your random movements. True unpredictability comes from not calculating at all. The former robot commanding officer, now learning organic warfare, emitted confused light patterns. But how can one achieve optimal chaos without calculating it? That's exactly the kind of thinking we need to break, Maria explained, walking to the center of the training floor. Everyone, gather round. Let me tell you about a human concept called winging it. The alien students formed a circle, their various appendages and sensory organs focused on her with intense curiosity. 2 years ago, they would have considered her species barely worthy of notice. Now they hung on her every word. In human military history, she began, some of our greatest victories came from commanders who threw away their original plans and improvise. We have a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Instead of seeing this as a failure, we treat it as an opportunity. She activated the training room's holographic system, showing footage from various human battles against robot armies. Watch these engagements. Notice how each human unit adapts differently to the same situation. That's because we encourage individual initiative. A Centaurian student raised their primary sensory stock. But how do you maintain unit cohesion without standardized response protocols? Maria grinned. That's the beauty of it. We maintain general objectives while allowing flexible tactics. Think of it like a dance where everyone moves to the same music but chooses their own steps. She demonstrated by having the class attempt a simple flanking maneuver, first the traditional robotic way, then the human way. The difference was stark. The calculated approach was perfect but predictable. The human approach was messy but effectively impossible to counter-program. Here's your problem, she explained, watching their attempts. You're all trying to be unpredictable in predictable ways. Real chaos comes from embracing uncertainty. When was the last time any of you did something just to see what would happen? The silence in the room was deafening. Right then, Maria clapped her hands. New exercise. Everyone pick up one of the training robots. Your mission is to disable it in the most ridiculous way you can think of. Don't plan it out. Just do the first thing that pops into your head. What followed was 30 minutes of glorious chaos. Approximen used their natural adhesive abilities to stick 2 robots together. A Centaurian discovered they could confuse robot sensors by rapidly changing colors. The crystalline Shriltal finally achieved true randomness by literally rolling into battle. Now that, Maria announced proudly, surveying the cheerful destruction, is what we call thinking outside the box. You're not just learning new tactics, you're learning a new way of thinking about combat. Later, in her private quarters, Maria recorded her daily report to Earth Command. The integration of organic warfare techniques continues to exceed expectations. The biggest hurdle isn't physical, it's psychological. These species have spent millennia thinking of warfare as a pure science. Teaching them to embrace chaos is like teaching fish to appreciate dry land. She paused, remembering the day's training session. But they're learning. More importantly, they're starting to enjoy it. The Arcturus Coalition has already begun implementing what they call human-style morale building. Basically, they're learning to have fun while fighting. Most surprisingly, we're seeing cultural changes beyond military applications. The Centaurians have introduced improvisation periods in their civilian life. The Proxima Federation is experimenting with non-optimized art forms. It's like we're teaching the galaxy how to play. There are challenges, of course. Some species struggle more than others with the concept of controlled chaos. The silicon-based life forms particularly have trouble with our gut instinct approach, but they're adapting, creating their own versions of human unpredictability. She smiled, remembering Triltal's breakthrough moment. The most rewarding part is watching them discover their own forms of creativity. They're not just copying human methods. They're developing entirely new approaches based on their unique biological and cultural traits. One thing's becoming clear. We're not just changing how the galaxy fights. We're changing how it thinks. The rigid hierarchies and pure logic that dominated galactic society for millennia are giving way to something new, something more human. Tor's out, she concluded, then added with a grin. P.S. You should see what the Centaurians can do with a captured robot and some bioluminescent paint. Uploading footage separately. Trust me, you're going to want to watch this one. As she prepared for the next day's classes, Maria reflected on the irony. The galaxy had thought humanity primitive for clinging to organic warfare. Now they were learning that the true primitives were those who thought war could be reduced to pure mathematics. The age of learning from machines was over. The age of teaching the galaxy to be human had begun. Grand Admiral Zix 427 stood before the Galactic Concordat's assembly, her neural interfaces glowing with an emotion that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Pride in imperfection. The massive chamber, once filled with purely robotic guards, now featured a mix of organic and mechanical security forces working in seamless coordination. Fellow members of the Concordat, she began, her voice modulator adjusted to convey subtle emotional undertones. Another innovation learned from humans. Today marks the 5th anniversary of what historians are calling the human revolution in military doctrine. I stand before you to present our final analysis of its impact. The holographic displays activated, showing scenes from across the galaxy. Mixed organic mechanical military units performing exercises that would have been considered illogical half a decade ago. Combat robots programmed with randomization protocols inspired by human neural patterns. Training facilities where soldiers of all species learned what humans called thinking on their feet. Our initial assessment of humanity as primitive was perhaps the greatest tactical error in our history. Zix 427 continued. We mistook their retention of organic combat forces as technological regression. Instead, it represented an understanding of warfare that had evolved beyond pure mathematics. She displayed footage from the latest joint military exercises. Human commanders worked alongside alien organic forces, each bringing their own form of controlled chaos to the battlefield. Centaurian color shifters used their natural abilities to confuse robot targeting systems. Crystalline beings like herself had learned to weaponize their refractive properties in ways no algorithm would have conceived. But the most significant change, she noted, has been psychological. The human concept of adaptive creativity has transformed not just our military doctrine, but our entire approach to problem solving. The display showed various scenes across the Concordat. Alien scientists intentionally introducing controlled variables into their experiments. Artists creating works that prioritized emotional impact over mathematical precision. Even civilian infrastructure now incorporated elements of controlled unpredictability to counter potential threats. The humans have a saying. Zix 427 continued. Necessity is the mother of invention. By challenging our assumption that perfect logic was the ultimate solution, they forced us to evolve. Our new mixed organic-mechanical military forces don't just match our old robot armies, they consistently outperform them. She highlighted statistics showing the effectiveness of the new doctrine. Simulation after simulation demonstrated that forces incorporating both organic creativity and mechanical precision achieve superior results to either approach alone. Perhaps most remarkably, she added, we've seen a 90% reduction in actual combat engagements since implementing these changes. It seems potential adversaries are less likely to initiate conflicts when they cannot predict the response they'll receive. The assembly buzzed with appreciative energy patterns as she continued. The humans call this keeping them guessing. Our strategic analysts have termed it tactical uncertainty deterrence. Either way, it's proven more effective than any purely mechanical defense system. Zix 427 moved to her conclusion, her neural patterns radiating conviction. We started this journey believing we were teaching primitive humans the proper way to conduct warfare. Instead, they taught us something far more valuable: the power of embracing imperfection. She gestured to her honor guard, a mix of robots, humans, and various alien species, each contributing their unique capabilities to the whole. This is the future of not just warfare, but civilization itself. Not the cold perfection we once sought, but a dynamic balance of order and chaos, logic and creativity, machine precision and organic adaptability. As if to demonstrate her point, one of the human guards had modified their ceremonial armor with personal touches that would have been considered highly irregular under the old protocols. Yet somehow, it made the formation more impressive, not less. "The next wave of innovation is already beginning," she announced. "Human engineers working with our roboticists have developed what they call controlled randomization protocols. Combat AIs that intentionally introduce elements of uncertainty into their decision-making processes. They're teaching our machines to think more like organics, even as we learn to leverage mechanical precision." The displays showed the latest generation of combat platforms, robots that moved with an almost organic fluidity, their tactical protocols incorporating elements of human unpredictability while maintaining machine efficiency. But perhaps the most profound change, Zix 427 concluded, has been in how we define advancement. We no longer see progress as a straight line toward perfect logic. Instead, we recognize that true evolution requires both order and chaos, precision and creativity, machine and organic.